Hello, hello. And I just lost my guest. Welcome. It is Tuesday night with the People's Pride Project. And I see today is going to be a very special day. It was intended that way. However, it might be a little bit more special than even I thought. One moment, please. Well, I have to get my guest back. I don't know what happened. Today we're going to talk about death. Here she goes. We're going to talk about death. I don't know what happened, but I'm glad you're here. Um, I'm here with Lashanna Williams of A Sacred Passing. That's actually how I first interacted with her, taking their Death Companion class. And this time of year, besides the fact that it's my birthday time and this is where I come into the world, I just love this closeness to the earth. I love watching the changes, and I love that we really take this time to celebrate life and the crossing over between the two realms. And I feel like a lot of us don't get to take that time outside of this Halloween, Fete Gede, Dia de los Muertos sort of situation. So I think we need to pause a little bit and let that feeling be brought more to the forefront. Like, we're all going to die. It's how we get out of here. So why fear it? And I'm very thankful that you're here with me to discuss, some of the nuances and things, especially dealing with people of color and all of the shenanigans that go along with that in the death process. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for holding the space. Yeah, thank you for making it making things happen just how they should have. Yeah, today being that we get to share space today, it's special. Our time together, not only I mean time is what we have.
Hmm.
So we get to spend it together and like you choosing to spend it with me, I feel like is a really big honor. So thank you.
Oh, that makes me feel special.
You are.
Oh, so what brought your call into the realm of death work? Because that can cover a lot of different sorts of things. What led you to that space?
Touched it. Really specifically looking at like how communities were and were not touched.
Hmm.
As a massage therapist, a lot of my clients were either in care facilities or through hospice, um, and I noticed that like folks would like touch people without consent or just like do things to them, and it was never there was never like reciprocal touch and then like soft touch or giving. It wasn't present very often, and especially if you were in a facility that was paid for with state assistance, like you didn't have extra people who came in to do all this shit. Like you had family when they could make it. And so, depending on where you're at and what amenities the space you're in, like you straight up could just be touched once a day by someone who's like rotating you in a certain way, or, like, let me help you get into bed, but no loving touch.
Hmm.
Um, and it was like I couldn't unsee that as someone who like in the state of Washington, you need a license to touch, and as yeah, whole ass thing. Um, so as a massage therapist, I was like, okay, well, at least I can reach out to these places and say, hey, can I come in and do this? Um, and some places said yes, and that was how I started just being present with folks as they died was through touch. Um, I I was gonna take a birth doula class with a
Hmm.
friend, um, and was sitting with a mentor and my friend, and we were talking about the class, and my mentor was like, "A birth doula class?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Lashanna, I would not hire you as a birth doula." I was like, "No shit, me either. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Like, I'd love to be doted on, but I would be like, yo, push. Like, let's go." And it's horrible. It's horrible. So I like was doing the training in solidarity with my friend, like
Mhm.
never intending to ever be a birth doula. And my mentor was like, "There's a death doula school in Bellingham, which is north of Seattle."
Mhm.
And I was like, "What? Tell me more." And so she told me about a school called A Sacred Passing.
Mhm.
And I like looked it up and like registered for the first class I could. And I learned through the founder of The Sacred Passing.
Mhm.
I learned a way of caring for people through the founder, who was Ashley Benham. Um, and I studied there for a little bit. And then through my own ways, and Ashley came back around, and eventually went on to nursing school and said, "Here, will you take this nonprofit for me? I've got other things to go do."
Mhm.
Um, and so she put the nonprofit in the hands of a Scorpio.
Oh, jeez.
Right, right. Um, this white Celtic woman just gave me, a woman of color, her nonprofit, and I said thank you, and then like was able to like just really take it apart so
Mhm.
that it lost its form, and like education was started to be a little bit more accessible.
Mhm.
Um, my co-facilitator Summer and I really got to rework what we had inherited in
Mhm.
a way that really created community and not like a recipe.
Right.
Right? Um, it it was a thing that people could, ooh, they could bring with them, instead of being like, "Oh, here's my uniform, this is what I've got to do." It was more like, "Oh, look at these tools that enhance these gifts that I already fucking have."
Right.
That nobody had to teach me these things. Yeah, I got to know that law because that fucking system exists. And that language is nuanced, and I have to study it because I don't get it, and it's really important that I know it.
Mm.
So those things we can teach, right? But there's other stuff that like we got. Oh man, that was a really long ramble of like how
No,
I
it's
got
very
here.
beautiful. It's fine. It's fine. But you did bring up three really good points: accessibility,
Mhm.
community, and loss. Now, from personal experience and just those around me, death is not something that in our community is dealt with in a positive. Like it used to be. It used to be this extensive celebration. It used to be this, there was this autonomy in it. There was this, you got to express in passing the way that you lived. And now it's like medical, or it comes through trauma, it comes through violence, it comes through illness. It's not this peaceful moment of transition.
Yeah,
So I feel like in our community, for the most part, there's this jarringness that happens when
yeah,
we think about death. And because a lot of it happens so quickly and so unplanned, we're left hanging in a lot of ways,
yeah, yeah,
through the laws, through what's left behind, or taking care of estates, dealing with
yeah,
family, who can do what, yada yada, and just the act of the transition and how we deal with it as a community
yeah,
has been forced to change a lot.
yeah. The space for communal grieving, like
Hmm.
that's a whole separate thing. But to talk like in community, why like death is around every single fucking corner. Is it
It's
swearing?
okay. We're
Okay,
authentic here. It's okay.
okay. Um, I just had to watch my mouth in a presentation before this, so I'm like, whew.
We don't
So
do
thank you for that.
that.
Like death is everywhere. and nobody is trying to engage it in any other way than it is already in front of in front of our face,
Right.
right? So like sitting down and going to a death cafe is no, no.
Right.
When a white lady comes in the room and is like, here's the pill that'll end your life, and you're like, well, isn't there anything else that we can do? Like there's a level of trust that is that doesn't exist there for
Hmm.
people to like give and share information.
Hmm.
And in the ways that things are, I don't think people with that information, like they just don't understand that it's not going to go anywhere. Like you have to share it and you have to make it accessible. You
Right.
have to put it in other languages. You have to give it to people who are doing the things already. And you have to we cannot be so rigid.
Yes.
You know, we're rigid for everybody else but a white man. You know, a white man wants something and we're like, oh, look how flexible I am. I just move and do fucking cartwheels.
I mean, it's true. That's there's no. It's true.
Can we get some?
And this is where we start carving out our own niches. I mean, we've had them. They've been snatched
Yeah.
or co-opted or forced forgetfulness altogether, but they're there. And I know for me, okay, my whole goal in this life, as I'm coming to find out, is I'm gonna be like a fine ass ancient crone. Like I'm the lady in the woods that you come for everything.
Yes.
Like
Tell
that's
me
why
more.
I'm here. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, there was this pull that, okay, you need to know this.
Yeah.
Nobody around you knows this. So these skills are necessary. There has to be someone.
Yep.
And that's not coming from arrogance. It's like, yo, we're gonna fall apart if someone can't do it. So somewhere in my soul contract, they were like, me, you'll do it.
You. Yeah.
It's gonna be you. So having these, it's not an occupation. I guess you want to call it having the calling to do it and making it accessible and available without the sense of trauma or urgency. How do we bring that to a wider scale? Or how do we make us remember?
Yeah. I think I think first we have to talk about being okay with being vulnerable with each other. Like going to a space of like remembering joy requires someone to feel okay and to
Mhm.
feel safe. So we have to talk about what that looks like to even go there. Um, and beyond that, I think like we just start by really honoring and talking about our love for each other, like
Yes.
one on one. Like we start with each other. Like who are the people in your life that you love, and how do they want to be taken care of if they were to get ill
Hmm.
or if they were to die unexpectedly.
Hmm.
Both happen. The having conversations in community about unexpected and tragic death is to not have them when we know that it's everywhere feels irresponsible to our heart,
Yes.
right? How how do we fall apart and come together again? Like what holds us as we fall apart,
Hmm.
and what helps us come back together? Because we have to be able to do both, and we got to be able to do it together.
This idea of communal care, I'm glad to see that it's coming back, slowly creeping into the norm,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like there's enough of it.
Yeah.
I don't like what when we're in these phases, when we're in these spaces, how would a family or how would someone reach out to find this sort of, community if it's so hush hush and taboo?
Yeah. I think it depends what community is. What community are you a part of? If you are a part of humans who have a tight knit community, then you know someone who, oh, they sit with people who are dying all the time, and you make a phone call. If sometimes people use Google,
Mm.
um, it sounds really like, oh, do I really? But if you want to find a community that's close to you, like the internet is there, it's a tool. If you have access to it, use it. See what's around. See who's doing some things. Um, oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was, I was just taking it. I'm like, that's true. It is kind of like you really do want to like go out in the woods and like tap on a tree and be like, who does this sacred, like in your head. So the idea to just jump on Google and be like, let me find somebody. It does sound foreign, but this is the time that we live in. So yeah, it should be that easy.
And really too, because sometimes and asking, like going around in spaces that you're in, like, do you know anybody that does this? Um, because yeah, I just a lot of times you see people who are like, oh, look at what I created.
Hmm.
And someone has been doing that shit in community for I don't know how long, and just because you got a website and put it up, like,
That's true.
damn, damn. And if that happens, and if you do it, and if you discover, oh shoot, someone was already doing that, fix your mistake,
Right.
right? Like, okay, fix it. That's all right. You didn't know. Now you know. Now
Right.
you know.
I
Um,
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go, please.
I was gonna say I always look at it like there's an auntie or a granny somewhere that knows something and it's just kind of about finding them.
Yeah.
And sort of along those lines, how do we how do I want to put this? How do we flip the switch internally that we're saying, okay, we know that we're going to die. We know that when is the right time to start, looking to bring these pieces of the puzzle together? When should we start putting together our death plan or things like that? Like, I'm the weirdo. I already have a will and a going away party planned. I have people that have copies just because, like, I want the glitter and the cannabis in my ashes. I want to make sure it happens. So
Oh.
I've written it out already. But when is a good time to really start discussing these sorts of topics?
So, really discussing death, I think, is really good to start at a young age. Um, with books, right? You could start with the death, talking about death through seasons, right? Death through nature. Um, I feel like starting the conversations can start as early as you reading to someone. Um, like actual plans, I
Hmm.
feel like it really depends on the person and how they're where they're at in their level of death anxiety.
Mm.
Um, if you're sitting with a 10-year-old and they're like not even in the realm of having these discussions, you don't do it. Your 13-year-old really might want you to have this conversation. Um, my humans are now 21 and 17, and we've had death plans for about 5 years.
Okay.
Um, my daughter is like really adamant, and she's like, "You will never dress me, never. Like, please, like, here are the people who have permission to put clothes on me. Here are the people who have permission to touch my hair. Here are the people who have permission to do my makeup. Like, and me, I am nowhere. I am nowhere on the list."
I love that for so many reasons, though. I really, really do. I love the specificity of it. I love the fact that she has so much autonomy in it already. It's like, this is the way I want to go. Mom, I love you. You're going to be there. However,
Yeah,
take a back seat.
yeah,
This is who I'm calling in.
yeah,
I'm sure that makes you proud, just as, just to say,
yeah,
she got this.
yeah. It does. It makes me feel happy that she feels safe enough to be
Mhm.
like, this is where I want you, and this is where I don't.
Right.
And the reason it's important is because, like, accidents and traumatic deaths happen
Yes.
all of the time. We hear accidents, right? Like, let's just an accident,
Hmm.
poof, at all kinds of ages and all kinds of stages. Like, nobody is immune to an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing what comforts someone, knowing what and how someone would feel cared for is important at any age. So if you feel like someone may be too young to have a conversation about death, you can have a conversation about like what brings you joy.
True.
Like what colors do you love? Are there
Mm-hmm.
flowers? Are there songs that really like make you want to dance, or like engage in those kinds of questions? And those are, I mean, those are beyond just like end of life questions. Those are relationship growing questions. We get to learn, um, like when you can have those conversations with like humans who are a couple generations apart.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, the storytelling that we get to get back into,
Mm-hmm.
ah, that is the magic. With all this technology, like you can voice note that, and then you have like, oh, magic.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true. And I think part of it comes from we don't want to recognize that life is finite, but life in this form is finite. So being aware of that and owning that actually makes the experience a lot better because it's like I have nothing to fear. I know what's going to happen, or at least I have a good idea because I've already laid out the groundwork. Like, I know my family's going to be taken okay because these steps were taken. I know I'm going to look like this
yeah,
because so by living in the fear, we're creating the very situation that we don't want.
yeah, yeah. I want to pause on that for a second,
Hmm.
and go back just a little bit to like to the plan,
Hmm.
and offer that even when we have a plan, like specifically the one that I'm talking about with my kids and the one that I have for myself. Like we have a plan, and we also have a plan that says, okay, if I can't do all of these things,
Hmm.
and the situation is mitigated in some way,
Hmm.
here's another set of options
Hmm.
that make me feel okay. Here are the ways that these certain things have concessions. If I can't be at home, please make sure I'm in a space that has a window.
Mm.
Like if I got to be somewhere else, then I just want to make sure that I get some fresh air. But you give a clue to something that can help
Hmm.
other people, help you make decisions if you need that. Um, Also offering, so having an ideal plan, having an intermediate plan, and then having an accident or a tragic death. What happens? That plan it's really for community,
It is.
right? So you are saying, you are holding community in that plan. You are saying, here are the things that you can do and love me when this shit fucking sucks.
Mm.
And so often when that happens, like in the middle of grief and everything else that's happening, what do? Right? Having notes from someone that's like, if you want to fuck it up by writing to these people. Don't go here. Do this. Like really specific instructions,
Hmm.
right? Support this candidate. It's election day today over in Washington. Like, oh, I won't say anybody's names, but I am so ready for tonight. But like really specific instructions, and we can be intentional about just about what we leave behind, and
Hmm.
how we get to hold the people that we love and who loved us.
What just kind of hit me in what you're saying is that even in passing, even in death, it's still a mutual experience. It's still a mutual expression, you know. And I think that gets lost a lot of times. It's either those that are left behind just want to get it done, or they just want to do it their way, or the one transitioning feels like they're being a burden, or it really is this sharing. And I think a lot of times we don't even acknowledge that.
Yeah. Where's the space, right? That, like, we're in fucking capitalism. There's no space, right? People are trying to still people are still working while caring for people and paying bills and like, oh, it makes like, today must be a day. Um, the fact that people don't have space to die and be held by community who are also supported and held whole and are wanting for naught as well, like that's just fucked up. Like with all of the wealth and splashed all over the place, the ways that we care for each other, like I can't handle it. I can't handle it. And so community care,
Hmm.
right? Figuring out how do we hold each other? What type of mutual aid can we participate in so that, I know if I want to be buried in a cemetery and go and be at a church and a funeral home and do all that, that's like $50,000.
Right.
Is that what I want? Or would I rather like my cousin go to college,
That's a very real way to put that.
right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know, like please have a bonfire and play some good music, celebrate me, and go to school.
Right.
Done. Like it's and we I feel like we're tricked by like what is honoring. Like we're tricked that it's these material things and the best casket and the biggest headstone marble. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's pretty, but I'm sorry, thinking that you could occupy a piece of the earth forever as a dead body is totally like a white man idea. What the hell? Someday they're gonna dig us all up and be like, what were they thinking?
There's all these boxes around. Like,
Can you believe they thought they could just stay here forever? Of course they did. They're humans. But
mm.
yeah.
So, what are some of the disparities you see between, westernized white burial practices versus, people of color and the things where do you see the differences or where things overlap,
Yeah.
you know?
Access to information.
Hmm.
Really, that's where it starts. Like what what are the laws in your location? What do you have to do compared to what you want to do?
Mm.
Like those things, like that is where I think disparities start in death. We want to talk about like end of life disparities. They start with all of the systems that suck, that are harmful and perpetuating harm,
Mm.
um, from our housing to the way that we handle healthcare to the environments that people are living in. Um, so until we really fix that road to death, like
Mm.
that good death is really like a good death for people who have money, who have housing, who speak the language that's being spoken in the medical world that they're in. Like there's all kinds of access that you need to have that good death.
That's true.
Like, yeah, to understand like disposition is the way that end of life, like the funeral and mortuary
Hmm.
world names the disposal of a body. So it sounds very cold, disposition. But understanding what your disposition options are in your state, like burial, green burial, which means without a casket or with like a biodegradable casket, cremation, aquamation, natural organic reduction, which is like human composting, is like a nice, easy way to say that. Like understanding what is available, you understand costs so much differently. You understand speed. You understand like what if you want a home wake, is option A available to you anymore? Can you donate any of your tissues and organs and still be home or be buried in this way? Like understanding your options, you get to really make choice. When someone gives you, here, you can have this or this, that's not choice. I mean, it's the appearance of choice,
Right.
right? But it's not choice. Um, and this country is really fucking good at giving everybody the appearance of choice. As doulas, we get to be like, we get to fuck it up and be like, actually, here are all your options.
Right. It's like professional shit starters. But but I really do like the idea, and it's kind of a mind fuck because we're so conditioned to be like, this is what has to happen. These are the steps that it takes. These are the people, and everybody's got their hand in the pot, on the way to getting you in the ground or on the way to whatever, however you choose. But a lot of us don't even realize we have those choices. Like they don't even know that those options exist.
No, no.
So, what sort of research or where do people go to find these options?
Well, they would. It depends. It depends on what the laws are in each state. Like
Mhm.
the organizations, the National Funeral Directors Association and the National Funeral Directors and Morticians Association. Um, those two groups, along with there's another name for like another overarching like board of people who make the rules. And if there was a law or an agreement in these groups that all options needed to be shared with people, then we could have that. Um, right now, people don't have to share all options.
Mhm. That
So
itself is kind of funky.
yeah, and pushing people to get online price lists.
Mm.
Um, in Washington, we have a funeral home, People's Memorial, that every year like gathers volunteers, and it's everybody gets on the phone and starts calling. What are your prices? Getting this big list updated because people don't have to publish their prices. They're supposed to, but they don't have to. So really looking and shifting the ways that the information is gate kept.
Hmm.
Like if you're watching this, you got access to the internet somehow, right? So then let's figure out how we shift that information. Let's call there, ask them how they make their rules. If like engage them in that conversation and engage them in, well, how do we make sure that there's access for all people?
Mm. It's a beautiful thing to sit here and hear this because it's hitting all sorts of buttons. And I'm like, we really need to recognize that even in death, we are empowered. There is autonomy in it. And so much of it, and it's another sneaky thing that they wait. It's just like, hey, y'all are a racket. Um, you're in the midst of grief, you're in the midst of sorrow because a lot of these things aren't pre-planned.
Yeah,
So you're just like, ah, somebody take it, or I'll take whatever. So that clear thought process is manipulated so easily.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that.
My bonus mama died a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and I was sitting with my sister the day after the funeral, which was the day after what most people call American Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And we were just sitting on the couch, just kind of quiet in her living room, and the phone rang. Um, and she's like, and she's talking, and she looked at me, and she's like, well, no, and she puts the phone on speaker, and I hear the person on the other line, and they start talking about Ma's headstone and how President Trump enacted tariffs on marble, and it's going to make the price go up. So if they would like to get a really nice headstone for Ma, they should probably order it now because they'll also catch the Black Friday deal.
Wow. Ah,
Fucking ground is still settling on Ma, and you're talking about a Black Friday deal. Are you fucking kidding? Like it was all that I could do was to keep my mouth shut because she was like no. She saw it all over. And because I was just like, and I called later. I called after we had everything figured out, and like had all of my words with those people just about like what is the process that you're going through, and like before you make that phone call. How many people did you say that to?
The detachment that it takes. Hey, I heard your loved one kicked the bucket, but I've got a sale for you. Like, what is that?
Really, really. Um, and that's common, right? That is common. The scripts of national funeral homes, of big brand funeral homes, even the ones that are in your neighborhood that have someone else's name on them, are
Mhm.
very often owned by like SCI, like a big company.
That I did not know.
So it ask them, are you independently owned, or are you a part of a network? A lot of the folks who are parts of network, they have like scripts and policies and all these things that they have to do, like and language, the language that they have to use is I think it's violent because it's non-consensual, and they're very much using the language to manipulate people. You know,
Absolutely.
very weighted. Like, oh, like here's the ever loved package. So if I don't get the ever loved package, is everybody gonna think that like I didn't love them? Like
Right.
all of the talk that goes on in with people, um, that's not even okay to add that shit.
That
Um,
plays on so many, oh, so much. Because for some reason we have like death competition.
yeah,
Who's who sent the biggest flowers? Who paid for this? Who's do there's and so many families get ripped apart by this chaos that happens after, like they're dead and gone.
yeah.
Now the world explodes. Like,
Well, and it's an act of love, like thinking of the people who are going to be alive after you. Like
mhm,
if you leave some breadcrumbs, people have an idea.
right.
If you leave a plan, people have a better idea. If even if it's like a story on some fucking paper, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's great when it's legalized. Like, don't get
Mhm,
me wrong. When it's done in the ways that protect you in the structures and the systems that we exist in, it's
mhm.
great. Also, just get it on paper. Talk about it. Grab someone you love, grab someone you like, grab someone to have some coffee and be like, hey, let's talk about this. Have you thought about what you might want?
I mean, we're walking around with digital devices strapped to our hips and press record and just let it happen. So
Yeah.
there's something, you know.
The discord that is present when people are grieving and trying to make decisions,
Mhm.
it's like it multiplies. It's exponential because everybody's grieving. Nobody's brain is working on executive functioning when we're grieving. When we are like in it.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. And so then asking all of these like long time commitment questions. If you don't know what someone wants, and then so you're thinking about, well, what do they want? And you got some guilt on yourself for not knowing what they want. What if I don't choose the right thing? We got more guilt and then maybe some shame. On top of that, sadness still, because maybe that was the person that you talked to and you can't, now you don't know who to talk to. Just like
Mhm.
all of this shit. So if as humans who are alive right now, like we think about an act of like kindness and compassion, that's really it. Not it, but that is an act of
Mhm.
kindness and compassion, is to get that stuff on paper, to have those conversations, to engage the people around you. What do you want? How do we do this?
That's the word. What are what do you feel in your experience are like the must-haves? Are there any must-haves
Yeah.
when in the death and dying process or the funeral process? Like,
So for your own autonomy, there are things that you can do to protect yourself.
Hmm.
Must haves, there are no must haves because in every state, decisions can go to next of kin. So if you don't choose to make the decisions and get the the your choices down on paper for yourself, someone else will make their best guess decisions for you
Mm.
if you can't speak for yourself. So some really, really important legal paperwork. One is an advanced directive for healthcare. And what that does is it goes through like in an emergency, in the event that you are unable to speak for yourself, what do you want? Who do you want to be able to speak for you? You get to list a healthcare agent and an alternate, and you can be fancy as you want and you can add more. Like there is not like a limit. I
Mm.
will say the more you add, the more you add.
Yeah.
It makes decision making, it can it can actually stop what you want to happen if people all of a
Mhm.
sudden get in their feelings and then there's not a consensus. Like if you wanted something to happen and are like, oh shit, now what do we do?
Too many
Um,
cooks in the kitchen. Yes.
yes, yeah. So pick people who you know will follow your wishes. They don't have to be like a partner. They don't have to be a relative. It could be someone that you pay. You are my healthcare agent. You may have like a stipend. I pay you $200 and you make this decision come this time. There's definitely paid healthcare agents. There's community healthcare agents. Um, there are ways to find people outside of your circle if you need it.
Mm.
Um, if your circle consistently dead names you, you don't want to be in their fucking care,
That's true.
right? Like you want someone who is going to hold the line and honor what you wanted to the best of their ability. So that advanced directive and that healthcare agent are really, really important. If finances are of concern to you, having a healthcare agent for finances is a similar form
Hmm.
than as you have for your healthcare. So you can fill one of those out. And the important thing to know for both of those is, you can change them as much as you want, and they're only good if you can't talk for yourself.
Okay.
So, it can be here and it's not an effect. Only if you were to be unconscious or something like that would they be like, "Oh, let me call this person and see what we need to do." So you're not really no one will have access to your bank account right now. Like none of those things would happen. Like you would have to be a doctor would have to be like, this person cannot speak for themselves. Here
Hmm.
is their power. Here is their financial power of attorney, and then you can have bank access, right? So there's some steps to protect people in there.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times, folks have a will, depending on like what your possessions are. I don't know if you can hear Whitman; he's totally. Um, oh, he looks so cute. But depending on like what kinds of things, what kind of material possessions you have, it switches what you might need. Um, I don't have stocks and stuff like that, but I know that people who have those types of things need a whole different type of like end of life financial documentation over like who gets what and all of that. And I say all of that because I really don't know shit about it. I just like send people to other people who do know the things.
That's smart. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, you know.
So you said advanced directive, a healthcare, what was it called? I'm sorry.
Yep, a healthcare agent
And a healthcare agent and perhaps a financial
and
agent.
financial power of attorney.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's across the board. That would be the wise way to go.
yeah, yeah. What what's extra
Yeah.
and where all the nuance
Hmm.
is a death plan. Um, a death plan really just it they can look very different, but they talk about time before death and they talk about time after death, and really get into the nuance of okay, where. who is okay to be around, who is not okay to be around. I mean, I kind of want to focus on this for a minute because we don't really have space, especially in
Mhm.
community, to talk about trauma and what we don't want. We are continuously like, oh, well, just, just go say hi. No, actually, I don't want to say hi, and I don't even want to be in the same fucking space. So, in our death and in our dying, if there is someone who has caused us harm, like having that conversation with people who are caring for you is important because you retain some control and some
Mhm.
autonomy. You're like, they are not allowed to be in here. I don't want them by me. Also, there's room for understanding. Like, I don't want them by me. And I understand that if I say they can't come in here, it's going to cause more fucking trouble than anybody is willing to deal with. So make sure I'm not alone in here with them. Just make
Mm.
sure someone's in here. You know, there's ways to like honor autonomy and really recognize that people make choices that aren't their first choice
Right.
for whatever reasons they may want, and how do we then help support that? But telling people it's okay to say I don't want someone around, especially in our dying when we feel like, oh, of course they're going to want to come say something. Like, no, protect your space. You are transitioning. Your body is working so hard. Your spirit is doing things that it hasn't done in years. Like, you are working hard. You do not need, like, just parasites. And I don't mean parasites, but yes, because that
Mhm.
energy needs to go somewhere else.
Right.
Um, yeah, not babbling again.
No, the things that are meant to be said or necessary to be said will always be said. So I never, it's not babbling. Um, I just lost my train of thought there. But as far as I know you said disposal options are different for each state, right?
Yep.
So for those that are trying to, dip their toe into or just go full force and run the gamut um, of their preparations, disposal should be something on their list that they make sure is already mentioned, not just, well, whatever happens, do
Yeah.
what you wish. Um, I remember from class you were saying that you don't always need a funeral director
Hmm.
to somebody to take the body and all of these
Yeah.
things like blew my mind at the time. I was like, you don't?
Yes. Yeah. So depending on your state, like each state has different laws.
Hmm.
Um, the National Home Funeral Alliance is an organization that you can go to their website, and on their website there's a state by state
Hmm.
description of like what is legal. I will tell you the website is it has language like family and other like I feel like it's not very inclusive. And as an organization, they're working on unfucking themselves. For transparency, I'm totally on the board and a part of that unfucking, and I'm happy to be doing it. So I can't really say like go to this website without acknowledging the fact that it's being worked on.
Hmm.
But those state by state guidelines are really really helpful. And what I mean when I say you don't need a funeral director is that for certain things, community can do. You
Hmm.
can keep a body at home. You can drive if you can drive the body to its next space. If that's a church, a crematory, a burial ground, um, you can do those things. The rules around them differ.
Hmm.
So in Washington State, I can do that. I just need a permit.
Okay.
To get the permit, I do need a funeral director. So how I've done that is I've grown relationships with some funeral directors around Washington,
Hmm.
and they offer me the permit, a death certificate, and a body transport permit at an affordable rate for about $100.
Hmm.
So like transporting someone through a service, that cost can range anywhere from 500 $500 upwards, depending on how far and how many hours are being driven and the conditions that need to be kept.
Right.
When you're able to do it yourself, you can it's the cost of gas and time. I have a Subaru. Like it's like every other freaking Subaru in Seattle. And with my passenger seat all the way up to the front and the seat tipped forward, I can fit a body in the back. That's why I got my car. I made sure that I could fit my bodyboard in there with the back
Mhm.
closed so that it could be used to help people transport folks for free. So with that permit, that cost just like it makes care so much more accessible, right? We don't have to spend all that money that we may not have had,
Right.
you know. There are some transport companies that absolutely work with you and will like play a play a play a playlist while you're driving around and like honor someone. So there are definitely places who care and maybe might work on a sliding scale basis. It just takes some looking around. There aren't very many of them at all,
Mhm.
but I want to give props because some of them are. I get to work with really, really amazing people here in Seattle who who are part of really harmful systems.
Mhm.
They acknowledge their roles in that harm and are really trying to undo it in the ways that they can. I feel like they're my gatekeepers with the gate keys who are like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, wait, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this doesn't have to go personal, but in your experience, have you had a moment as a companion, as a whatever role that you were like, yo, this is fucking phenomenal. Like, this person is either like they took their shit and was just like, this is them. You know what I mean? Like, they really owned it. It was beautiful. It was like, they did the damn thing. Yeah.
I've had so many of those. I have to say that because I work with a lot of people who choose medical aid in dying.
Hmm.
So the number of folks that I have cared for who on their ingestion day is a lot. I feel like for me, um, and those folks are ready. Those folks have come to a state of being where they are in it, and they are in it so so openly and authentically that it's you cannot help but be a different you from that moment on.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, being able to make that choice, like
Hmm.
taking your medicine and choosing to drink it, like that moment right before, I can't even imagine, like what a clear moment that is when you're like, yeah, thank you. Um, the the spaces that I've been in where people have been able to be authentic about what they want, where people around them, even if they don't agree, are still
Hmm.
supportive
Hmm.
in supportive of the happiness and the love of the person who is dying and who are able to like handle their own shit and hold it here so it's not like leaking everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, the way that people are able to love in those moments is so genuine and you can see that it holds the person into their death. um I've met some people who are just fucking hilarious. um I had a gentleman who he's standing in the kitchen and he wanted me to mix his meds, and so I start to do that and he's like, no, that's you're not doing it right, and I was like, can you help me? And he's like, yeah. And so he just starts mixing it and doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. And his family kind of laughs, and it's full of you. The kitchen is full of people. Um, and he says, well, can I drink it standing up? And I was like, it's better if you drink it sitting down, but you can drink it if you want to drink it in here, and then let's go in there. Um, and he said, okay. And he drinks his medicine, and he looks around at everybody, and he like kind of does this like fall, and myself and his wife like we're like, oh, and we go like to get his elbows, and he goes, he just starts laughing, like, you know, gets his balance, like his fake off balance back. And I was like, "You're fired. You get no more sympathy from me. You get like I wipe my tears away because he had said some things just before that
Hmm.
were like got me." And so I was like, "You get no more tears, motherfucker. Like done, or it's over." And we get over to his chair, and he does this stumble, and he's like, "I got you." I was like, "That was so real." And he's like, "You're good at your job, kid."
Oh,
And I was like, "Thank you. Thank you." And he sat down, and his family had a playlist set for him. We talk about those, like, there's 5 minutes, roughly 5 minutes between the time someone will ingest their meds and the time they lose consciousness and fall into a coma. Um, and so talking about that with people, like, you know, there is those 5 minutes if you want to have music or you want to read something, like just think about that time being a little bit intentional. And so in that time, they played music, they called a couple people, and then he went to sleep, and he died a short time later. Yeah, ridiculous. And he's soil now, and all across his backyard. They had gone through and marked off little spaces where when his body as soil was returned, where he wanted to go.
oh.
Yeah,
It's so wild to even hear that because I'm not sad. I'm just like, that's fucking amazing. Like, there's a joy in that ownership to be like, I'm going to do it my way.
yeah,
And this is how I live my life. This is how you knew me. You know, it shouldn't be relegated to just a hospital bed and tubes and this and that and just taking the personhood out of it. Like, damn it, I want you to know me the whole way out.
yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I really, really do.
It is. I mean, it just the beauty in it is like the taking the time to get to know each other again.
Hmm.
Like to not just to know each other, but to know each other and actually give a fuck. Like want to show up.
Right.
We have so many things, but how many people do we have that literally show up for us? Who, oh, it just gave me chills. Who are they? Right? I know I always want to show up better for my community. Um,
Yes.
I feel like I can. Maybe this is like my training through capitalism is to think that I can always do better. Um,
Mm.
but I feel like I can always show up differently or better in community, because our needs are so changing. Like we need to move and change. And understanding this work, it's a heavy way to show up for community, but it's really important.
There's got to be somebody.
Yeah, yeah. People will say, "I can't believe you do this work. It's so heavy." I was like, "Have you? Could you imagine teaching kindergarten?"
Right?
Oh no, 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 thank you.
It's like we're all built for our own paths, madam. Like, that works for you. I'm going to be over here doing what's right for me.
Yeah,
So, but thank you for being so willing to show up. Even in just coming on here for me, like it was a stab in the dark. I was kind of scared, not gonna lie. It's just, why did I show do it? But thank you for being willing to show up.
yeah,
Truly.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like we got to meet for a reason, and then I mean, when I meet someone, I like to show up until they give me a reason to be like, don't show up for that person. Like yeah, that's what
Definitely.
we get to do.
Well, I only try to hold people hostage for an hour, but I definitely want to drop your contact information so that the people know where to find you, to keep
Thank
in
you.
touch. I would love to have you back. I don't know, just whatever. I am available to you in whatever way. You got me.
This was a really comfortable, juicy conversation. So I am like, yeah, let's do it again.
Absolutely. I'm so happy.
Yay.
Well, this has been another. Before I cut this off, is there anything else you want to say? Anything you want to share?
Yes, thank you. Um, if you look up a sacred passing, we have a program that's called A Place to Die.
Mm,
It is basically mutual aid of sharing space. Um, it's an amazing program that is replicable anywhere, anywhere. So if you fancy going to look for it and think, oh wow, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if we could do it. Call me, email me, text me, and I will try to help figure out how you can start this community mutual aid program for people to have a space to die in your community.
love that.
Yes.
Yes. So this has been a fabulous conversation with Lashana Williams. Tuesday nights couch conversations. I love these things. Like the more of them I do, I just fall in love with the guests and then all of it. It's heartwarming. So much knowledge is shared, so much space is held. It's just I get all like giddy and weird but still it means so much for everybody that shows up. And like I said, thank you for showing up. Um so we'll be back next Tuesday night. Please, if you need to reach out, Lashana, her contact information is scrolling now. Um, she's a wealth of knowledge. We
Mm,
haven't even touched on it. So
yeah.
honestly, but thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.